Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ethical AI Marketing and Compliance. This is an interesting topic. I'm glad to see that some of you are on the call today, but let's get started with this. We have a few a few assessments to perform that we've already performed those assessments with AI on some other credit repair companies, as well as some of the credit repair software providers as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we get started, let's go ahead and read through our disclaimer. But remember, this is not legal advice. Two, that AI output still needs review. God forbid that AI gets it wrong. Google used to get it wrong a lot more than AI does, but AI, though getting better as we get closer to AGM, I believe that it'll continue to get better. But in the interim, you have to know what you're talking about and do your due diligence, because if not, AI can go ahead and give you bad information or damage what you've got already. So you have to validate, verify, and properly constitute what we call engineered prompts. We'll talk about that during the presentation as well. Regulations also change, right? Some of these, there's new precedents like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau implementing the telemarketing sales rule as a broad rule across the credit repair space. So this is something that we need to pay attention to. And we'll on our next webinar, I believe we're gonna start looking at things that are different or have changed over the last year or two, and we're going to be discussing those compliance issues that have changed. This webinar is important to all of you out there, because though AI is making it much easier for you all to go ahead and create ads and blogs and reels and landing pages, in some cases just submitting a script to create a complete video for a minute, two, maybe three. That's all great, and that's great to increase your effectiveness, but be very careful with the messaging. AI does not understand unfair and deceptive trade practices unless you tell it to, or unless you're building towards that, right? AI may hallucinate from time to time, as we discussed on a lot of other webinars. We've talked about AI as well. So you want to be able to filter out what AI can't do correctly by structuring great prompts, right? And especially when it comes to your marketing, right? You want to make sure that when you're making bold claims, that those bold claims are substantiated. Don't make things up. It's not necessary, and it actually exposes you more than you think. So compliance affects conversion, right? There's a few companies, and we'll see, that have been engaged by the regulatory agencies, right? And those customers or those companies are still in business. Most of them are not, because the grievances were so egregious that they couldn't come back from what the damage was, either in fines or in operations, or they were just completely just flat out banned because the grievances were just that bad. So, closing a business, that's going to affect conversion, right? So just pay attention to this. So remember this, the Federal Trade Commission says deception is still deception, right? You've got to be truthful and not misleading in all of your advertising and all of your marketing. So if you're using AI, right, you've got to generate content, you've got to validate it, and then even have potential, some of those, we would recommend that you would have some of that looked at by a compliance expert, vis-a-vis a company or an attorney group. But it's a good idea to ensure that AI's gotten it right, and it is analyzing your website the right way. Well, later on, where you'll see that where we analyze ScoreCEO, and we actually found some things that we know are correct, but it's giving us some advice so that it's not such a critical offense by substantiating some of the statistics right online, and being consistent and changing some words around. So we'll take a look at that in a bit. You need remember that anything that you claim, any testimonial you have, you need proof. With regards to testimonials, right? I recommend that when you do ask for testimonials, you use Google. We have a link that we give to our customers so that they can fill out testimonials, and they get posted on Google. And Google we have a widget connected to our website, so all of these testimonials just get automatically published on our website. Now, Google is a valid place to go ahead and do that. You can't just write them up and put them on Google. They have to come from real people, and Google knows if they're real or not. So not only do your claims need proof, but your testimonials need to be substantiated and posted on sites that have the right reputations around them, so that you can use them as a tool on your digital marketing sites or landing pages. AI is going to help you basically take your ideas and make them better than you could ever do on your own. But it has to do that by repurposing the information that you're giving it to create a clear and concise prompt, right? It's also going to clarify things and put things in ways that make sense to your target audience. Right. And since you're doing more, you can do more with AI. You can create a consistent workflow of things that you do week in and week out regarding your marketing. So you can think of AI as a valuable assistant, not an expert that you're going to subcontract to or hire and let them drive the bus. You have to pay attention to what AI is doing and correct it. As time goes along, it'll start learning from your corrections as well. So that's the way you should use AI, as an assistant, as a helper, especially in marketing, right? These are the red lines of credit marketing, or what we call the don'ts, right? No guaranteed deletions. If your website is saying you guarantee deletions, well, yeah, you could possibly say something like that. If you only charge after you guarantee your guaranteed deletions happen, right? You can say anything you want, right? As long as you can substantiate those claims. And if you're going to promise something, you can't charge until your promise has been fulfilled, right? You can't guarantee score increases, but if you do, you can't charge until you do. So, yeah, but just because you're saying things on your website or your digital marketing materials doesn't mean that you can't say it. But be mindful of, if you do say that on your digital marketing strategy, that you can't charge until that has happened. If you say you remove 80% of your items until you don't get 80% done, you can't charge a red cent. So be careful with that. Don't, just because you want to kind of hurry up your marketing, you don't need to use pressure or push people to do this. You don't need to mislead your current audience, right? And that's a way, once again, to lose credibility and lose customers, right? The credit game, an example of that, is the credit game. They guaranteed credit results. The FTC basically engaged them, and they promised to raise consumers' credit scores by 100 points in as little as 45 days. So that means that for every customer that sees that, they have to do exactly that. If not, it's an unfair and deceptive trade practice. And that's probably the number one reason why businesses are engaged by the Federal Trade Commission and now the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So you want to be careful about that. Not only that, but for all of those customers that they did not increase the hundreds of points in as little as 45 days, guess what? They can't charge for it. So if they did, they also took fees in advance of services. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So be careful with what you say. By the way, that company is no longer in business anymore. When you're generating AI copy, right, you wanna make sure that that your prompts are correct and what it's responding is correct, right? So I would say that you ensure that your description of what you don't want your website to say should be there somewhere, right? Or profiling in your prompt what you should be, the laws that should be regulating that. And we've got, I think Jasmine has gotten a prompt that later on she'll go ahead and use and show, or she'll show you how she's used it and evaluated some popular and some CRO websites that we've done an assessment with that prompt, and it's gone ahead and done a magnificent job. Now, does it mean that it's correct? No. It doesn't mean that it's correct, but it's going to draw your attention to some potential issues that you can, based on its risk assessment, you can go ahead and engage your content, change it to eliminate all doubts, or just go ahead and have some legal consult or a compliance expert look at it so that they can go ahead and they can help you make your content better in a way so that it's as compliant as it can be. You want to always focus on educating the customer, not scaring them, not telling them that if you don't do this, you're gonna go out of, you're gonna go out of business in our case, or you scare them by by if making yourself the last best dispute process for your customer if it's to the it's business to consumer, right? And you want to make sure that your AI copy is reviewed. And like I said earlier, I would even add to that legally reviewed by either an expert or an actual attorney, which is a specialist in this area. This is important because AI frequently gets things wrong. It's getting better, as I mentioned earlier, but you need to use it as an assistant, not the ultimate expert. Even when you tell them the prompt establishes the role as the AI agent being the expert, doesn't necessarily make it the expert. The don'ts, right? And the ad copy, right? Ad can generate high converting copy that sounds great and looks like it's going to convert, and it's got these great taglines, right? But some of the language may be too aggressive, or maybe establishing the wrong expectation. You have to be very careful. If you think about the previous slide about education, if that's your focus all the time, you kind of stay away from that, but you can market accordingly that way as well. The goal is to avoid claims that create a misleading impression. And think of it this way, if what you're saying can't happen to all of your customers, it's probably something you shouldn't be saying on your website or anywhere else. If you have claims that are true and you can substantiate them, you have to be able to disclose that somehow, disclose the way you do that, how you've achieved that, and how this doesn't guarantee the same results for the consumer, right? And we'll look at some examples of that, including on our website. Okay, so we found a few errors that we hadn't caught before when doing this exercise for all of you out there. So you don't want to hide your disclosures. You want to make your disclosures be right there in front of your clients. If you want to ask them to attest to it, you can. You've seen sites that say, please read the end user policy and attest to it, right? When you get right on their website, I might ask you that every couple of weeks or every couple of months or every day if you go on there. It depends on how sensitive that data is. Okay, transparency, be clear and visible. If you don't understand your disclaimers, or you don't understand what if you can't make heads or tails of what you're saying immediately, that could be a big red flag. If you have somebody else read it and they don't, and their expectations are skewed, that's a huge red flag, especially if it's skewed towards the uncompliant side of things. You want to explain variable results, right? Like we have a statistic that's gone up to 140 points in 6 months, for people that use our dispute process, and has dropped to less than 110 points, and we're in our dispute process, depending on our statistics, and we measure that through ScoreCEO and run specific reports to come up with the newest statistics. But AI pointed out to us, you have to be able to substantiate that and have that information ready to go on how you calculate. It gave us a bunch of suggestions so that we can protect ourselves even more. Example, using Google reviews. As I mentioned earlier, when you use Google reviews are as transparent as they can be, because Google doesn't let you, the user, write up your own reviews. Maybe once, but after that, you're done. And obviously, you need much more than just one review. So think of a process on how to send customers a link to your Google review page when they are happy about results, when they are happy about how their expectations are being fulfilled, and when they're not being fulfilled. Go ahead and give us your honest opinion. You want to have the best reviews out there, but it's impossible to be 100% correct all the time. So if you've got a customer that's not a 5, but it's maybe a 4 or a 3 or a 3 plus plus, let them give you the review, because the review is real. Obviously, the better you do your job, the more 4s and 5s you'll get, right? Reviews and testimonials and social comp, never fake them, as I mentioned earlier. Disclose the material connections if some are paid. You've seen advertisements like that, and you've seen a lot of AI advertisements like that say, this is the digital representation of myself. It's not me. Why? Because if your AI is so good that people think it's you, and you're purposely misleading them, that could be considered unfair and deceptive trade practices. Be very careful with that. When you create AI-generated videos, make sure that you're disclosing that they're AI-generated videos and why you're doing it, right? Establish the right expectation, okay? And if you're being paid for a testimonial, definitely. If you're paying for testimonials, definitely disclose that. That is important. Don't cherry pick unfairly. Avoid testimonials in a way that implies the typical results if they are not atypical, right? And that's what I meant earlier by saying, hey, if you get a result from a link that you sent on a Google review that was tied back to your website, if it wasn't the review that you expected, but it was still a good review or not, unless there was something that was blatantly wrong with the content that was being said, go ahead and leave it where it's at, even if it's a 3 or a 2. If it's a 2, you want to engage that customer and try to fix and remediate the problem as much as you can, and post a response to that as well. Let customers see that you're not afraid of pulling back the curtain and showing everything that's going on in your business. Just not good reviews, but fair reviews as well. Now, if you get somebody that's just and we've all had this happen, that they have a bad day and they just want to make things up, and well, you can have those reviews removed, but the right way, through Google, and there's a process for that. Human review. Okay, remember, AI is your assistant. Okay, you want to Google to analyze the bulk of it and look at all your content, which could be an enormous task to do. You need a lot of concentration and kind of come up with what you think is wrong, right? But when AI does it, it doesn't mean that that's the ultimate all-in opinion. You have to go ahead and review that. You have to, if it's a review, for example, you've got to go, or a testimonial, you want to check out what was wrong. What is the message promising, implying, or guaranteeing? If it's something that negatively that's said in a testimonial, or something that you posted on your website or on some piece of marketing collateral. Okay, review the evidence. Ask yourself, can we prove this claim if a regulator, client, or attorney asks the question? Right? Obviously, each one of those people could impact your business in a multitude of ways, right? But you have to be able to substantiate that claim. And review the disclosures, right, that you may have. Did you include that the way you performed that in your disclosures? That's something that we have to do on our website. We have a few statistics that we need to include on disclosures, and we looked at that, and I think we're going to go ahead and do that. We've actually sent that document to the marketing people at Score, and they're going to make some changes in the next week or two, so that we can aggregate and add to our compliance. When you're using ScoreCEO campaigns, you want to, the first thing is that ScoreCEO follows email can spam act. So we support safer messaging, more concurrent messaging that gets delivered to the inbox, hopefully more times rather than not, right? That's the purpose of using our transactional email service with Mailgun within ScoreCEO so that things get delivered. Now, what you're saying is important. Now, Mailgun won't perform a compliance check for you, and neither will ScoreCEO when you make up your own templates. So this is a great place to go ahead and get an AI assistant to give you their opinions. And then you can ask the appropriate questions to your legal experts, your compliance experts, or your attorneys that consult you on this. Because, I always say the only worst thing than not knowing, right, is not knowing the questions to ask about not knowing. You sometimes that's the biggest problem. Where do I start? If you're having a problem starting, ask AI and help them nudge you a bit and ask them, what questions should I ask? What should I watch out for? Establish the prompts correctly. Make sure that you don't assume that AI knows what you know and that you know what AI knows. You need to consult with AI, and then what you get from that, you can go ahead and get your legal consult, but you can go ahead and get templates kind of approved, right? From internally, so that when your messaging goes out, it's correct, right? Your campaign steps and triggers, right? You want to make sure that they're timed correctly, so that if you're sending something that you're not sending an invoice, right, prior to giving the consultation, right? Because that can be looked at and interpreted as not getting paid fees in advance of services or valuable consideration. But the fact that you're sending that out before doing the consultation, that's not a good thing. You're gonna have to explain that. And just explaining it to a regulator puts you in a reactionary posture. Okay. Your disclaimers need to be in one place. Let me tell you something in ScoreCEO that we do. And we're probably one of the only companies that does this. And I've mentioned this on previous webinars as well. Number one, a user in your business that's using ScoreCEO, would his end user agreement be different from a referral agent that's using ScoreCEO, and also from a lead or a customer that's using ScoreCEO? The answer is yes. And we in ScoreCEO, we have different end user agreements for the different types of contacts or users inside of ScoreCEO that need to be accepted by them for different reasons at different times within the use of the software. So you want to have your disclaimers all in one place, but they also have to be correct and appropriately structured. You can't just have an end user agreement for consumers and expect that applies to your affiliate partner relationships or to your users particularly, right? Because your concerns or risks or the things that you can do with a user, which could be an employee or a contractor, right, is completely different than the way you interact within the software with your customers and leads and so on and so forth. So the important thing is that you have to have your disclosures in one place. Well, guess what? Most of the platforms out there don't have 3 different sets of disclaimers. They have one. It's like a blanket disclaimer for everybody. Well, good luck with that if you ever have to explain that. ScoreCEO helps you with that as well. Your campaign workflows is the best example of that. If you look at our workflows, they're structured in a way that are kind of not difficult to customize, but there are certain things that you just can't do, right? Like you can't send a contract if you don't have a payment model plan selected because you haven't established based on what the customer wants, what payment model plan they're interested in. And you can do that automatically through forms, as well as doing it, going straight down the workflow process and talking to your customers about it, right? This is important, right? The workflow is important. You don't even get a payment step shown in the workflow in ScoreCEO for any given customer until specific steps are done, like choosing a payment model plan, right? Then and only then will it give you the ability to enter credit card information or any payment information after you've selected that and completed that step, so that you can have the payment step appear. Right. So that's important, right? There are certain things that we've kind of had non-negotiables, and we probably won't change that, because we're inducing our customers to perform a non-compliant act or letting them do so. So we've decided not to do that, right? When you have AI prompts that include claim limits and prohibiting words and audience and disclaimers, right? What you're doing is that, and what you're saying in your scripts, right, in the workflows, you're standardizing your legal jargon, what you're saying to your customers, or what your campaigns are saying, more importantly, to your customers in an automated way. Okay, you want to have somebody inside of that, even if it's not an attorney, somebody that's, let's say, a compliance person, that their secondary task or primary task is to be your internal compliance person. It could be on payroll, could be contracted, could be an attorney, could be someone you know, like, and trust. But make sure that it's approved internally, that you've done a due diligence of trying to get that done. Whether or not you selected the right person, that's a whole different ball of wax, right? But the fact that you're looking for a third-party opinion on what you're generating with regards to your content that can be automated through campaigns, triggers, and campaign lists, this is important, all right? You want to send through controlled campaigns. Use ScoreCEO campaigns to keep timing, recipients, and templates in your templates organized. You can do all of this through ScoreCEO. So, like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to send an invoice prior to performing the actual work, or even closing the customer, more importantly. So these are things that, though may not be compliant, if you have to explain yourself because of regulators in your business, that's going to look funny to them. And explaining yourself is exactly what you don't want to do with regulators. Regulators want to see the following. They want to see that you are self-regulating, and that you have control in a compliant way. If you change a process or a protocol that you know was uncompliant, you document it and say, we caught ourselves in a no-no, and you slap yourself on the wrist. If they look at that 2 years later, they're going to say, well, this is a serious company. A company like Lexington Law and CreditRepair.com, that even though they've gone through a multitude of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of fees given back to consumers, they're still in business in a much more controlled way. And it's because they know the space is profitable, but they've got to play within the limitations and the realm of compliance. Okay, that's, like I always say, compliance is a thing that affects all of us, including our competitors. Okay, so we want to be able to do that. Constructing an AI prompt framework, right? You need to understand who your role is, what the audience is, right? Who the role of the person you want AI to be, all right? And you want to have, maybe point out some sample prohibited claims, right? Maybe use specific laws, right? Maybe a required disclaimer if you need to in there as well. Jasmine, you were working on earlier, you were working on a few prompts, one for business to business scenarios and another for business to consumer scenarios. Do you want to pull up the business to consumer scenario so you can show how you followed this prompt? And now, mind you, don't be intimidated. This prompt was actually produced by AI as well, wasn't it?
Yes, correct.
I'll give you the control. I'll stop sharing,
Okay.
and you can go ahead and share what you've done and explain to everyone how you created your prompt.
Okay, I'm sharing now. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me
Yes.
pull up the prompt now. Hold on, give me 1 second. This is the research we were doing, so I'm gonna pull up the prompt that I have it on a Word doc.
Can you open it up? Just maximize it. There you go.
Okay,
You want to go
there
over
we go.
this?
Yeah, sure. So basically what I did with this prompt, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so basically what I did was, and I was having trouble figuring out what prompt I should use. I actually asked ChatGPT to give me some help creating the prompt. And we talked about the what we shouldn't say, um, and how not to be deceptive on our websites. And it created for me a massive prompt. So it's pretty big. And we can see here that it's really to kind of do the website marketing compliance review. So it does break it down on, it gathers your information, it reviews everything on the site according to the website that you put in. So it can work for any credit repair website.
I
And
see that. I see that at the beginning, it establishes the role, right, and the audience, right?
yes, correct.
Acting as it's saying, the prompt is saying, acting as a marketing compliance analyst specializing in consumer credit repair services, artificial intelligence claims, credit reporting, consumer protection, FTC truth in advertising standards, and credit repair marketing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
After it's established that, then it's saying what site you want to you look at, what's the
Correct.
company name of the website, right? And then it goes ahead and it tells it a bunch of other stuff. Can you go over that?
Yeah, so basically what it's going to do is it's going to keep the same pattern as it's doing up here. As you can see it here, it says the company being reviewed markets credit repair services directly to consumers. So basically it's saying what you as a credit repair company would be doing right on your website. And then it continues with treat the company as a consumer-facing credit repair organization for purpose of identifying potential marketing risk under the Credit Repair Organization Acts while avoiding definitive legal conclusions about liability or violations. So basically everything that you want it to analyze, and this is it's doing it based off of because it's thinking that it's a marketing compliance specialist. So that's why it's taking all that into consideration. And it
That's
says it
kind
here.
that's kind of like a disclaimer, right? And
Mm-hmm.
further down, it's saying the purpose of the review, right? And it's going into exactly what the prohibited
Yes.
claims should be, right? Things that it knows are known, like guaranteeing credit report deletions, guaranteeing credit score increases, promising specific results, claiming it can be removed accurate and current negative information, misrepresenting consumer rights, charging or appearing to charge prohibited advance fees, misrepresenting the legal effect of the dispute letter. That's something that I see a lot. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of CROs, even when we see them dispute, they want to take this. They want to become an attorney all of a sudden, and act as if they were a legal resource in disputing. You have to be really careful about that, especially when you're not an attorney. That there's a whole other set of rules around that when you start practicing law without a license, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be really careful, and specifically in some states that are really hard on that. But go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, one thing I liked a lot about it was this section here, how it's saying to don't assume that the company has any violations of the law. Um, just everything based on observation on the exact website language, visibility, and so forth. And I like that because in the prompt at the beginning, the person that they're acting like, there's it says like artificial intelligence claims. So and it's someone that if they're looking at it, it's someone that probably looks for violations and stuff like that. So I like that it was specific on don't just assume that there's something, a violation going on, but just pinpoint, and review everything um, based on observation. So I kind of did like that. I wanted to point that out, and it's important to use that when you're creating your prompts, just to make sure that it's not throwing you a different route into a different rabbit hole that you don't really want to go to. So then it asks the pages of and materials to review. So here you can see that there's tons of them, and it gives a high level because a lot of websites may not have all this, but they may have some of these. And so it's basically just helping making sure that it's reviewing these pages or and information, not just on top, right? Just what we assume that it would review. We want to let it know to review what actually are the things that are showing up on these websites. As we go down.
It also defines the scope of the business model as the legal classification. Well, and you'll see the difference later on. We can show you the same prompt that we use to evaluate a credit repair business, and it started correcting itself on that prompt, I believe, and it started saying, and even though, let's say, ScoreCEO is not a credit repair organization, there are certain things that apply to general marketing as a sales company, selling different services to the credit repair business community. It starts giving us a bunch of recommendations based on that. That even though we don't have to comply with CROA, we should be aware of CROA fundamentally.
Right, correct. And it's something that we should be really aware of because of the type of clientele for our software. So then it's just going over the different compliance sections, and this one is talking about the Credit Repair Organization Act. So you'll see that it wants it to review all the compliance purposes of it, as well as the FTC, the telemarketing sales rules. So it's really breaking it all down. And that's why you're seeing that this prompt is so big, because it's detailed. So any prompt that you use, the more detail you give it, the more exact it's going to be, the less possibilities of you going through a rabbit hole you'll find yourself. So these are just the different laws that it's going to be reviewing, as well as the state laws. And then it's going to start also with the reviews and testimonials. So it's also going to be evaluating that, and it lists a list of criterias and stuff that it's going to be looking at, as well as artificial intelligence, or AI.
We
Okay.
can see the wording, right? Remove charge-offs permanently. Results in 30, 45, 60, 90 days. The AI is pulling this right off of websites and pulling it on, analyzing, as you can see, case law and actual law, state law, and it's giving its opinions from a compliance expert perspective, as an assistant to you, to your compliance efforts, right? So this is, these are the terms that we're using: dispute claims, dispute everything, right? Challenge every negative account, right? Bureau must delete if it doesn't respond. That's not true. If the bureau doesn't need to delete if it doesn't respond, the consumer needs to dispute if they don't respond, and based on what their dispute is, then they can go ahead and apply that or not, right? That's why we believe in the technical factual dispute methods, right? Factual disputes
Exactly.
always work. That's also not true, right? That's why it's on that list, because factual disputes just mean that they're truthful. We're not saying things like, it doesn't belong to me, it's paid as agreed. When I say we, I mean the credit repair space is not saying, shouldn't say things such as, it doesn't belong to me, it's paid as agreed, it's not mine, it's in duplicate, when we're unsure of that, right? We have to be we have to really be careful with that. unfair usage of the 609 in
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
loophole.
was
You
there.
got to
There
be,
also.
yeah, you've got to be, using just because you say the section and you can cite the phrase and you've got it in your letter templates doesn't make it so, right? Think
Yep.
most times credit repair organizations take customers on, and you know what's happened most of the times that life has happened to these consumers. But that doesn't change the fact that the responsibility of the credit reporting agencies is to sustain a list that is 100% correct and 100% verifiable. Okay, so stick to that. Okay, instead of what we mentioned earlier, doesn't belong to me, paid agreed, not mine, and in duplicate. Okay, and the variations of those. If you stick to that, you'll be pretty safe on what you say, and you're going to be challenging items that could be verified, need to be verified, and maybe negative or not. You need to, if you dispute it, if they correct it, fantastic. They've just updated your content and made it the right content. If they don't perform their due diligence and they just decide to remove something or delete the whole line because you wanted them to correct the date of last activity in Experian and Experian just removed the whole thing, well, how is that your fault? That's Experience fault, right? Or the furnishers or the data furnishers fault, all right? But your objective is to edit and ensure that the consumer has the right information in there. What the CRAs and the credit and the data furnishers do with that, that's all on them.
Completely agree. And we'll see here, there's also other claims that it's looking for, the compliance and legal claims, as well as the billing claims that, like we see here, attorney approved, legally guaranteed, and stuff like that. So it's looking into those different claims as well.
Yeah, like you could say you're fully compliant in the state of X, and then you should have all of the information for your state compliance, right? It should be there. It should be within your disclosure documents. You should point to an asterisk somewhere at the bottom of your page. It should be noticeable. Okay, that's important.
So here is just going down, as you can see, just many different types of claims that it's going to be looking for. The business and lifestyle claims, um, privacy and security claims.
For example, if your PCI, if the software that you're using is PCI, or like I mentioned earlier, email can spam compliant, okay? That means that you follow everything in ScoreCEO will follow Email Can Spam Act. Well, we don't let you create campaigns or add anybody to any lists if they haven't double opted in at a minimum. Not single opted in, double opted in. That's important. Why? Because that will only send the information to clients that have approved you in sending them marketing collateral or marketing information, not transactional data. Invoices, meetings and such like that, follow-ups and communication with the customer, webinar invites, things like that. That's a transactional item. Those are totally legal, right? I'm talking about marketing, right? If you're upselling the customer, moving them up or laterally, right? Promoting your services, promoting additional aggregate services that you guys have, like student loan consolidation or a credit monitoring dispute package to do on their own, right? Those customers need to approve that first. And ScoreCEO's engine it complies to that 100%. That's important, right? Because if not, the customer won't receive it. And that's why sometimes in ScoreCEO, your customers are not receiving their campaigns because they've chosen to opt out. And you can see that within ScoreCEO, by the way.
And so here it just continues with more different claims that it's going to be looking for, making sure that if any of these claims are not either promising anything or, guaranteeing anything. So it's breaking down section by section, the legal aspect, testimonial aspect, dispute aspect.
Oh, and
And
then it's asking them to rate it,
Mhm.
whether it's risky or not. That's nice.
Right.
So
So
let's see
then it'll show the
how much
risk
more do we
levels.
have of this? Is that's the longest prompt I've seen yet.
Yes, it's very long. I believe it's about like 7 or 8 pages. Um,
This
so
is a lot to
it's
look
very
at and go
detailed.
over.
Yeah, it's
Are you
very
going to give this
detailed.
to everyone?
Yeah, so they just have to send an email to support@scoring.com if they're interested in the prompt, and our team will send them over the prompt.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at the way you applied this to a credit repair company. An example, like I think you ran Lexington Law and creditrepair.com. I think there was another one that you said MSI. Now, when she sends and shows these evaluations, remember, this is our prompt that we did, that we created today. That doesn't mean that the prompt is the legal expert anymore. It means that is a very complete prompt that's going to point some risks out, that is basically saying, hey, take a look at this because this could be risky. Okay?
So we have two versions. We
Can
have
you maximize this, please?
yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me just adjust my screen because I have one screen blocking the other. Okay.
And
There we go.
you may wanna close your sidebar on chat where it says ChatGPT plus.
Okay. Hold on. There we go.
All right, and that maybe make it a bit bigger with the plus sign at the
I
bottom
can
left.
zoom in. There's no plus sign up for me.
Oh, okay, I guess that's me then. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's for you to do the zoom in. I can zoom in here and
Okay. All right, awesome. So let's go to the top of the results of that analysis for what
so
company?
we did the analysis for either credit repair softwares, and then we did the one for credit repair companies. Which one would you like to go over first?
We're here at MSIs. Let's go through one credit repair company and let's go to Score CEOs.
Okay. So so let's want to do ScoreCEO first?
Sure.
Okay. So this was ScoreCEOs, and I'm gonna scroll down a bit.
Now the prompt here was a bit different because it was really
Yes.
B2B, right?
Correct. That's what would have changed. A lot of the things that it's going to be looking out for changes as well because credit repair companies have to follow CRO and other aspects, and credit repair software, business software is a little bit different. So the prompt is a bit different, and it's looking out for things related to B2B.
Yeah, like CROA, the Credit Repair Organizations Act rather than the Fair Credit Reporting Act and things of that nature.
Correct.
More weight on that. When I looked at this, I got to tell you, when I saw 55 out of 100, I almost had a heart attack. I said, "Oh my God." But when I started reading through the executive summary and reading, it started pointing out things that we do have, but we haven't substantiated in an obvious way to our customers, right? But let's continue on this. And by the way, not to pat ourselves on the back, but out of all of the companies that we checked out, we were the highest scoring one
Yes, we
that was
were.
selling softwares out there. We had softwares in the 30 percentile range. And that doesn't mean that their softwares and their offers are bad or non-compliant. And we're not trying to say that. What we're saying is that our prompt
The
found,
website quality
yeah,
also.
found some things on their websites that should have been looked at, or may need to be looked at by their compliance gurus at their facilities, right? In their businesses.
Correct. So we'll see that it gave us the summary at the top. Do you want to go over it, Josh?
Sure. So let's scroll up to the primary marketing risks.
Okay.
So right here, it found four. No, go back.
Oh, sorry.
It found four primary marketing risks. Once was the 100-point average score increase in 6 months. we've got to be able to substantiate that, and it's got to be somewhere else and made obvious, right? And customers need to see how that's calculated and things of that nature. We need to fix that, right? So we're going to fix that, right? I agree with ChatGPT. Large outcome and statistics, including, well, actually, it pointed out something that we know that we're well. I believe Hyder gave me a statistic of something like 600, 6 million disputes accommodated, right? And it's much more than 500 accounts with deleted or repair. We've got to be able to identify that and show and be able to substantiate that on request, right? Because that's important, right? And if we don't want to show the accounts for our customers to do that because we need to, we'll eliminate the content, and so that it doesn't establish the wrong expectation. Repeated statements that ScoreCEO ensures compliance. That was a mistake that we found on some pages that we did not review correctly when we were porting our new website, building our new website, and we left some of our old content there. We need to correct that as well. Outstanding claims that suggest best or maximize credit dispute results. That is totally what the ScoreCEO does. Our score does not want to do. Our shtick is to go ahead and say, you know what? If you outsource to us, right? We don't deal with your customer. We have no interaction with your customer. We don't establish expectations. We're just like an employee, a contractor. We're like a guy that does your windows. We'll go ahead and do your disputes for you as well, right? But we don't interact with your consumers. We don't interact with. We don't talk to them. We don't communicate with them. That's prohibited at SCORE. That was actually something that was pointed out to us many years ago by Greenspoon and Martyr. But guess what? We're saying we've left some legacy content in there, and we've dropped the ball on that. So now we have to clarify a little bit more, because we let you become faster. We let you maximize your opportunities. We let you do that because you're not doing the disputes, but we're not saying that correctly. So we're going to alter the verbiage around that as well. Scroll down. Jazz? Yeah.
Can you see my
Outsourcing
screen
creates,
go down?
yeah, now I can.
Okay.
All right, so outsourcing creates separate legal question. Outsourcing page goes beyond merely licensing the software. It states Score handles activity. So now the AI is questioning, hey, if you're working with your customers, you have to be careful, right? Because are you doing the credit report analysis? The answer is no. The CRO does that. Are you doing the dispute processing? The answer is yes. Are we doing the dispute action plans? No, the CRO does that. Scroll down. Okay. Are you doing letter generation? Yes. Direct to creditor correspondence? Yes. Compliance tracking? Well, the software does that, right? Some client communication? None at all. We don't communicate with the client. The software that the CRO is sending out templates to the client based on actions, right? Whether it's us or their processor, the same thing is going to happen. So what we figured out with this assessment is that it's telling us that you need to worry about this and make it you have to say things in your, maybe our user agreements, or in our privacy policy, or in our disclosure statements, that we don't do these things. And that's why we don't do business with the consumer at all. We don't take funds. We don't establish expectations with the consumer. We don't talk to the consumer. We don't correspond with the consumer. We do so, any of those, if they are done, they're done on behalf of our customer, right? Like a notice of account update that goes out on a monthly basis is automatically sent by ScoreCEO on behalf of the owner of the business, or the processor, or the person that's attached to that customer, either as a sales rep, or a customer service person, or a processor, right? So, but it's not, if let's say Jasmine is doing the dispute, it's not coming from Jasmine. We don't have direct communication. So, guess what? ChatGPT didn't know that. So we're going to include that in a way that explains that in our end user agreement, so that it's clear in our disclosures, right? And it very clearly states what we will not do and why. and what our intention is, right? So I guess we're going to kind of get some help with that, and we'll have our marketing people work on that and fix some of these things. Scroll down, please. Material marketing claims. Number two, right? We talked about this. This is something that we need to substantiate a whole lot. Original business customer could understand that consumers managed through ScoreCEO commonly or typically gain approximately. This is from this prompts or this AI recommendation is that this is a critical event. We need to pay attention to that. The reason for the occurrence is this is a precise, measurable, time-specific credit result claim. It's more than a general advertising puffery. The website doesn't visibly identify how, basically, if you scroll back, scroll up, how we got to those conclusions. And we have to make that obvious as well, or eliminate the claim. Okay? The FTC endorsement guidelines and advertisements in communicating this. This is the Federal Trade Commission doesn't only regulate credit repair companies, ladies and gentlemen. It regulates a lot of other areas, but unfair and deceptive trade practices is something that affects every business, not just the ones that are in the credit repair space. And it's trying to tell us in that realm, you want to be really careful. Okay. And it's telling us what we need. We need a reading statistical study. That means that we need to produce a white paper or a study or a document on how we've arrived at and why we've arrived and what mathematics we're using and to get to where we are where we are, and how often we repeat the study, right? Define population. What's the realm or the sample of the study? The sample size, the exclusion or the inclusion criteria, right? The score models that we're using. It's not just 100 points. 100 points based on a what? A trans risk score, a FICO score, a Vantage score. We've got to say that, right? Baseline and 6 months measurement process, right? We need to go ahead and tell them we're saying 6 months, but we need to baseline it for the first, from January 1st to June 30th, from July 1st to December 30th, right? And we need to have maybe versions of that because that result may go up a few. Like I said earlier, it used to be in the 140 point area. Now it's dropped, it's gone back up, it's dropped, it's gone back up, depending on the effectiveness of not only us but our customers as well, right? The median, the mean, the range, the distribution, right? Percentages achieved. So we have to explain the formulas, right? Scroll further up, please. So it's telling me how to correct ourselves on one of the things that is most important to it, right? A substantial could ensue, and it's giving me a sample of what the verbiage should say and the human review, and we may want to get that assessed by a third party, right? Like we mentioned earlier in the presentation. Scroll down. The reason for concern, deleted or repaired are materially different outcomes, right? Repaired is not defined and could include corrections, updates, status changes, duplicate suppression, reinvestigation, or score improvements. I had this conversation this morning with some of our developers where we were talking about an outcome and when they were looking at options as, I believe it was deleted or repaired or remain the same. I said, that's not enough. If something was deleted, right, why was it deleted? Okay, according to what, right? If something, and this is internal backend information that we need to know at the ScoreCEO level, which helps our AI engine produce better results moving forward, right? Well, guess what? We also, when you say repaired, what was repaired? Was the date of last activity or the balance repaired because you challenged that in a technical factual dispute method just for Equifax? Well, you've got to not repaired. What was repaired? What agency was repaired? Or was it the data furnisher there that had it done for all three? Was it just the date of last activity? What was done? Unfortunately, a lot of the reports that are out there don't give you all this information, right? They'll give you most of the information, but not all of it. Soon you'll see at Score that we'll have a credit monitoring service that not only has what appears on the credit report, but it'll have a myriad of variables that you can use as reference to be able to dispute a whole lot better, and AI will be incorporated into that. So that's coming soon, right? Proven results, right? When we say proven results, how, right? We need to explain that. Okay, just proven, we have to provide the proof, right? Scroll down, and that's a legacy, right? That's just weakness on our part that we're doing, right? Compliance and legal accuracy terms, right? Ensures legal accuracy and compliance automation, and not ensures, it should say helps, right? Or helps you be aware of potential legal aspects, right? Or accuracy issues. We have to spin that so that it says the right wording, not the wrong wording that may mislead customers, because that's not our intention. Our intention is to inform or educate. We have to correct these things, right? That we think are correct, right? There are some of these that we know that are not correct, but a lot of them are, a lot of this assessment. Scroll down, please. Yeah, that's just more recommendations. General claims that ScoreCEO ensures compliance. That's a big red flag for us. That's one of the biggest ones that I said. We don't ensure compliance. We educate upon compliance. Each company ensures their own compliance, right? They have to be legally licensed and bonded if they need to be. They can't do business in states that require legal licensing and bonding if they're licensed and bonded in another state. And just because you're licensed in Texas doesn't mean you're licensed in California. The licensing is commensurate to where the feet on the ground are of your client, right? And that means that if you have a California customer, you need to be compliant in California. If you have a New York customer, you have to follow the rules from New York, right? That sort of thing. Scroll down. And it's even telling me what the appropriate verbiage support your compliant process. I agree. So this document, if I'm not mistaken, has already hit the marketing person's email about a few hours ago. All right. Scroll down. All right, continue. These are all some of the same things. It's asking for PCI DSS claims, right? Well, we are PCI DSS compliant, and we have a certificate and a logo, and we don't have it up anywhere. That needs to happen ASAP. Okay, because the certificate, we go for our insurance policies, we go through these PCI DSS compliance audits. And sometimes and for the last few years, for the first couple of years, not a lot changed with PCI DSS. But I would say for the last 4 to 5 years, a lot has been changing, specifically with a version of how what's called TLS and how these numbers are presented, classified, securitized. The versions have changed, so we have to change our coding for that. And some of these things on a yearly basis, we codify so that we correct them at a programming level, right? Well, most clients out there that take credit cards don't understand that they shouldn't freely share the CVV codes, right? Or the date of expiration and the card number in the same place, or not at all. And they black box. A lot of our competitors black box this information. That means that they store it in a database, though encrypted, that could be hacked. And with AI, ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious complication, because AI it doesn't get tired. So AI is just going to be curtailed by the amount of funds you throw at it, and everything can be hacked, everything can be compromised. So if you're not careful, you can be in trouble. All right, so this is things that we want to correct immediately. Scroll down. More of the same here. Performance claim with the same type. Maximize results and dispute strategy. So the word maximize establishes for me one expectation, for you another. Okay, so we need to change that, moderate to high, right? It's just tomatoes, but it's pointing it out to us, and these are some of the things that we want to correct. Continue. These are all moderate to high. Continue. Customer testimonials. One testimonial says, ScoreCEO, help me stay compliant. Okay, right? Well, if it's from Google, that's our evidence. This is one that we probably don't need, because we've eliminated most of our testimonials that are not substantiated on Google. That's why we've changed our strategy over a year ago when we released a new website. Performance metrics dictionary, 6,000 companies. So we need to be able to substantiate that if asked for, which we can by producing reports, right? But we as a company have to be careful with disclosing sensitive information on behalf of our customers. So either we take that out of there, or we have a process to solicit legally the evidence for that, and that we need legal consult on. So it came out with 5 tough ones. Everything else is a fly, right? That's something you can do or not. Okay. This is the results of that analysis. If we look at the MSIs or credit repair cloud as well, or we look at out of all of the companies out there with this same prompt, we probably scored the closest one that got to us was probably maybe at a 52 score, which amazed me. That means that, guess what? We're preaching compliance and we've got a lot of work to do. Could you imagine the companies that are not worrying about this? And they're the ones providing you with services, and they're not asking these critical questions that could be boring as heck talking about it, right? But these are the things that get companies permanently shut down. Okay. So if you need to run this on your websites, Jasmine will have these prompts ready for you so that you can go ahead and use. And Jasmine, if we can explain to everyone how to go ahead and solicit that from you again, that would be great.
Yes, all you would have to do is send an email to support@scoreinc.com requesting the website prompt and the website analysis prompt, and we would send this over to you.
Awesome. So let's continue. We've already gone through some of the checklists here. Create, approve wording, train your team. Obviously, you want to train your team with everything you're learning in these webinars. Have them, when we release the recording of it, they can go to YouTube and learn from that. They may want to do that. You want to if you want to go ahead and have us review that for you, you can schedule a call or solicit some of these prompts so that you can do this on your own. Okay, these are the sources of our materials here. FTC advertising and credit repair laws were used to create this webinar. Once again, be sure that we have a new blog out. How profitable is your credit repair business in 2026? We've got a bunch of new training resources that we're migrating from one of our systems to another. You want to take a look at that. Some new YouTube resources have been released on our YouTube channel. Credit repair business websites. If you need a website, remember, it's just not what we have. There are templates for companies that have nothing. But if you need us to do a complete analysis and help you to try to drive your business through content and acquire more of your market share, we are in it to win it with you. So we have services around that. We have SEO services. We have content revision services. We have blog writing services. We have management services as well. We can redo your website from A to Z in a custom way if you need to. It's not just what we have on our templates, right? We provide dispute processing in an agnostic way. So we want to be able to liberate you so you can really focus on the high payoff activities rather than the processing activities, which could take up your time. Like I've said always before, if you spend 100 hours this month disputing, Well, that's 100 hours less that you have less month to sell. So think about that. Naxo is an excellent resource, probably one of the more reputable and oldest credit service organizations we want to be members of. They have lobbyists. They've deployed lobbyists that have defended credit repair companies. They've also failed to engage lobbyists because of funding, and especially now that the CFPB is there, we need to empower them and fund them so that we can have lobbyists explaining why serious credit repair is serious credit repair, profitable, and can benefit consumers the right way, not the wrong way. And by the way, you can use the Naxo 100 code to get $100 off as well. Next webinar is staying compliant in 2026, new rules, real risks I mentioned earlier, and how to protect your credit repair business. I will see if you have no questions. Do we have any questions, Jasmine?
No, we do not.
Okay, I will see you on August 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Once again, have a great month, and continue to drive your businesses in a compliant way. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.